Hi, little dear friend. Are you tired of the snow too? Hi. It's a little windy. Hopefully the sound is okay. It's just a little bit warm too. Is it warm? Am I gonna get cold? Anyway, I brought a little bit of notes here. So I just got back from Eugene, Oregon on Monday. Was it Monday? And is it Friday? Oh my gosh. It seems weird. And I've just been kind of Betty Crockerying my way around the house. Yesterday I did a little snow shoveling and kind of spacing out stuff. But I have been needed to get my planting calendar done because I need to think about planting. And so I focus first on the greenhouse. You know, what do I need to start and when am I going to need to plant things into the greenhouse? And so that's all I kind of got done this week. And yeah, I made myself some notes. So last year, I got my calendar from last year. And anyway, last year I tried to start as early as I've ever started because I wanted to be able to kind of get the garden going by the 1st of June and be able to harvest by the 1st of June and get things going, just see how early I could do things in the greenhouse, you know, the 2 greenhouses here. But, you know, in the past, there's always been issues. It's just like in March, oftentimes it's still freezing and the water's not running. You know, I've got a hose going out here that goes to some drip lines that go in the beds. And so I've had in the past to do various things like during the day, maybe I can get the water running. And so I fill up some buckets and I put them into the greenhouses at night and cover them. And they might get a little thing of ice on the top, but then I can use the water to water the stuff in the beds in the greenhouses. Last year I was lucky that the water was running, I think in March. And so I was able to just use the drip right away. But yeah, so last year I've got my calendar from last year and I wanted to start my transplants for the greenhouse in mid-February on the 15th. And so I was going to start some lettuce, some kale, some bok choy, even some sugar snap peas. But then I ran into some issues with my start soil being a problem. And so I had to restart a couple times. And so everything is all kind of funky. That, you know, that information isn't really good as far as like, oh, if I start mid-February and I get things transplanted out at the beginning of March, then, you know, how does it go? So I really don't know how it goes, you know, because everything was kind of funky chicken and I had to restart my transplants and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. The other thing that I was thinking about is that, you know, maybe I don't want to do things this way. And that's because 2 issues, really. The water, number one, is such a pain in the butt to get things watered, especially the stuff that I've direct seeded. So it's one thing to have, you know, the transplants. I start them in the house just until they germinate. And then I get them out into the greenhouse really quick so they don't get too leggy and, you know, so they get some light. And I, you know, put them on tables that are in the walkways in the greenhouse. And I water them with my ice water and I cover them at night with Rime and I pray it doesn't get too cold. And then the stuff that I've direct seeded into the beds, I have to try and keep it wet. So I'm using whatever water I can get and then I cover them with the row cover, you know, again. And, you know, that keeps the soil kind of moist and it keeps the soil from evaporating. And, you know, it's just like this big pain in the butt. And so it's worked okay, but one of the issues that's coming up this year is that like next week, it's supposed to dip down into the teens Fahrenheit, which is about as cold as I've ever seen it in March. And you know, that happens. That's not unheard of because March can be really cold. And so it's one thing to be dealing with like temperatures hovering around freezing, and I've thought about, oh, at nighttime if it dips below, I could get something in there like a little propane heater or something to kind of just keep temperatures above freezing. But yeah, now I've got this forecast for super cold weather at night, not, everything below freezing during the day, and that is just too cold. So something that I wanted to do in the past, but I haven't had any space or whatever, like I can start things in the house, they germinate. I have a little bit of a section for a space for where I can put stuff under lights, but then the temperatures in the house are like more around, maybe 65 degrees by the floor, but 70 degrees up in the air. And then if I want to just put them out, there's this, because it doesn't ever get warm here. And so they're shocked, like if I want to get them out in April or whatever, it's still pretty cold. And so I've wanted like a cold space, a cooler space where it's maybe around like 45 or 50 degrees or something, where I can have them under lights and the starts will grow, and then when I transplant them out, they won't be quite as shocked. And so anyway, I've been working down in the cellar underneath the house to get that ready for a walk-in cooler space. And so now I have some areas where I could do like a makeshift lighting space, and it's cooler down there. I can keep it above freezing with a little space heater. So that is what I'm planning to do. Like right now, that is my plan for next week, is to set up real quick a makeshift nursery for my transplants, and get some soil blocks going and get some seeds going in there. And then I'm considering what to do with my direct seeded stuff. Like I'm half thinking that like in the past I've direct seeded orage and baby chard into the beds, and then I'm trying to water them, keep them going. I've kind of thought about like maybe just doing those as transplants this year too, and transplanting everything at the 1 foot drip holes, and just and along with the lettuce that I would also transplant, that I've always transplanted at the drip holes, so then they get watered properly. Because in the past I've run the drip just to try and get everything saturated in the bed, and I have to run it for a while just so I can keep my direct seeded stuff properly watered. So yeah, anyway, I don't know if this makes any sense, but I've got drip line that's staggered, so I can plant essentially kind of every foot, but then it's staggered, so then you have kind of essentially plants every 6 inches. And so I think that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do transplants for lettuce, orage, chard. I'll probably direct seed some radishes at the ends to attract slugs away. But yeah, and then I'm going to have a makeshift nursery in the cellar. I think that's the plan. So one of the issues with this that I've been thinking about is, what do I do with my garden transplants? Because normally I put them on greenhouse tables in the walkways, but now what I'm thinking about doing is actually planting early with my lettuce into the greenhouse walkways, so then I wouldn't have space for the tables. So should I just start even my garden transplants in the cellar up under lights? Maybe I should do that. So what I did was I put together a calendar. At first I was like, well, I'll just get a new calendar, and usually I can get one at the grocery store. They're just for free, but then they kind of ran out and I couldn't find any. And then I was also thinking, do I really want a new calendar every year that I have to file away, that I have to look back at? Or shouldn't I just like have a print out a calendar that I can kind of keep? So what I did this year was I set up my calendar for February. Okay, so it's already March, right? So I have my March calendar from last year, and then I just printed out a March 2023 calendar and stapled it on here. And so then then I can look back, like what was I doing last year, and it's right there. Or what did I want to do last year? And so yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. And so then I've got March set up here, where normally I'd probably want to start my transplants at the beginning of March, but I only just got back home. So I'm gonna maybe try and get them started Monday. I don't know, at least this first week of March. And then I got my first, succession of Salanova, which will be in one 20-foot bed. And then the next week I'll do my second succession of Salanova lettuce. Bok choy seems to take less time to get mature, in the soil blocks. So I'm going to start my bok choy with that second round of Salanova. So then, the next week the third Salanova, next week the fourth Salanova. So that would be the 2 greenhouse beds and the 2 walkways. So then supposedly they would be ready from under the lights in the cellar. I would transplant them out into the greenhouse. That first thing of Salanova at the end of March or beginning of April, whatever you want to look at it like that. And so then I would continue to transplant out each week, and then the first Salanova should be ready to harvest at the end of April or the beginning of May. So so I'm just going to give that a try. Most of this stuff that's in the greenhouse early is simply for us to eat, and so I don't know if I'm going to try and sell things in May, because I really wouldn't have anything else ready, because my kale is, at most everything's out growing in the garden is going to take a lot longer because it's a lot colder out here. So anyway, yes, and so that's kind of the plan. I've just got things mapped out through May in the greenhouse, and then I need to start working on how I'm going to do things, or how I would like to try and do things out in the garden and stuff. So I'll work on my calendar for that. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. I think that's everything I have to say. One thing is I should know in March whether I'm getting that large tunnel through the NRCS program, the high tunnel program. And so that will be a, big, what is it? 20-foot by 50-foot tunnel that would be located over there. And I don't even know when I would be required to kind of get it up. That's been a concern. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. That's probably too much information. That's what I've been doing. Hopefully this isn't too much blah, blah, blah. It doesn't make any sense. Yes, I've got my planting calendar ready for the greenhouses, and hopefully next week I'll be getting those going, and then I'll be thinking about how to get things planted in the garden. That's everything for now. We got about probably a foot of snow on the ground, and temperature's going to drop next week, so it doesn't really feel springy, but we're supposed to have blue skies with that cold weather all next week, and so that's kind of nice. See you guys next week. I got $10 in a card, I think it was last month, from a relative for my half birthday. And so today I'm gonna go and get a latte. Become a coffeeaholic.